You're listening to Ghostumentary Scary Short Stories, original pieces updated throughout the week.
Billy's first sleepover. Billy lay wide awake, sprawled out on Chuck's shaggy carpet in his sleeping bag, staring at the dim ceiling. The house creaked and groaned with unfamiliar noises, the kind that weren't part of Billy's home. He knew the sounds of his own house, the creaky stair on the second floor, the hum of the fridge that rattled in the kitchen, the pipes that groaned after someone flushed the toilet. But this was different, new, unpredictable. Chuck, on the other hand, had fallen asleep almost instantly after they'd played asteroids for hours. Barely a word from Chuck's dad after he told them to hit the sack. They'd played until Billy's fingers cramped. But now Chuck was snoring softly, lost in the blissful world of dreams, while Billy lay wide awake, too shy, too scared, to navigate the dark hallways of this strange house. Billy had two problems. The first was that he was thirsty, his mouth dry from all the soda they'd downed. The second, and more pressing, was that he had to pee, badly, but he couldn't just get up and wander to the bathroom. What if he ran into Chuck's dad? Or worse, what if he bumped into Chuck's sister? She was in high school, which made her practically an adult. She hadn't said more than a few words to Billy all night, and she probably thought he was just some dumb little kid. If she saw him creeping around in the dark, trying to find the bathroom, she'd think he was pathetic. And that 1% chance of her ever liking him? Gone forever. But the urge to pee was growing worse by the second. He shifted uncomfortably in his sleeping bag, trying to block it out, thinking about anything else. Pac-Man, Knight Rider, but it wasn't working. "Chuck," he whispered, desperate. "Chuck, you awake?" Nothing. Chuck was dead to the world. Billy had no choice. He had to go. Quietly, he wriggled out of his sleeping bag, the sound of his jeans scraping against the nylon too loud in the dark room. He stood up, hoping the noise might wake Chuck, but no such luck. Chuck was out cold. Billy crept toward the door, the darkness of the room making shapes he had stared at for hours turn into something more sinister now. The pile of clothes in the corner looked like a crouched man. The coat hanging on the chair seemed like a figure waiting to spring at him. But he knew better. He forced himself to believe it. He reached for the doorknob and gently twisted it open. The hallway beyond was darker than Chuck's room. The shadows stretched long, and there was barely any light except for a sliver of moonlight from the kitchen window at the end of the hall. The bathroom was to the left. Billy had been there earlier in the evening. After the third soda, he could make it. He had to. His bare feet sank into the carpet as he stepped into the hallway, trailing his hand along the wall for guidance. He hated the way the silence seemed to grow around him, like something was waiting, watching, hidden in the darkness. But that was just his imagination, right? Billy found the bathroom door, pushed it open, and flicked on the light. The harsh brightness nearly blinded him, and he quickly did his business, flushing as quietly as possible. He didn't bother with the hand-washing ritual this time. He turned off the light, pausing in the darkness before opening the door. The hallway was still pitch black, and Billy's eyes struggled to adjust. He took a step forward, his hands trailing the walls again, retracing his steps back to Chuck's room. But something made him stop. There, at the end of the hall, near the kitchen, something moved. Billy froze. His heart pounded in his chest, his body rigid with fear. The moonlight caught on something, a shape. A person? No, not quite. He squinted, trying to make sense of it. Was it Chuck's dad? No, too big. And besides, Chuck's dad didn't have fur. And this thing, whatever it was covered in thick, matted fur. Billy's throat went dry. He felt a deep, primal fear crawl into his chest. It wasn't a man, not a dog either, something in between. The shape stood still in the moonlight, massive, hunching over, confused, as though it didn't belong here. But it was here, and it had seen him. Billy's breath caught. He knew what it was. He had known all along. Deep down, his parents had warned him, especially on nights like this. A full moon. They didn't let him stay over at other people's houses when the moon was full. But he had begged them, said he was old enough now, that he could handle it. And now, here it was. The figure in the kitchen turned, slowly, revealing its face. Its eyes glowed faintly in the dark. Animal-like, confused. Billy could see its nose twitching, its lips curling slightly back, revealing sharp, gleaming teeth. And then recognition washed over him. It was Chuck, his friend. Chuck stood there, covered in fur, hulking and confused, trying to make sense of his new form. Billy felt a pang of guilt in his stomach. He knew this would happen. His dad had warned him about what might happen if he lost control, even for a moment. And earlier, while they played asteroids, Billy had playfully bitten Chuck's arm. It was supposed to be a joke, just horsing around. But for someone like Billy, a bite meant more, much more. Billy stepped closer, his fear slipping away as something more familiar took its place. "Chuck," he whispered, his voice low, almost a growl. "It's me." Chuck's eyes narrowed, his breath coming out in heavy, panicked puffs. He didn't understand yet. Billy took another step forward, his bare feet, paws sinking into the carpet. He felt the hair sprouting from his own skin, the familiar itch as the change took hold. His own transformation was slow tonight, but it was coming. It always did on full moons. He'd been ready for it his whole life. Chuck, though, Chuck had no idea. Billy reached out, grabbing Chuck's arm gently, feeling the thick fur beneath his fingers. Chuck jerked, his muscles tensing, eyes wide with confusion and terror. "It's okay," Billy whispered, a grin spreading across his face. "I'm like you. I've always been like this," Chuck growled, low and uncertain, his body trembling as the full realization hit him. Billy's grin grew wider, his own sharp teeth glinting in the moonlight. "I was too scared to do this alone," Billy said, his voice barely a whisper. "I'm glad you're here." Chuck's glowing eyes locked onto Billy's, still unsure, still struggling to understand. But Billy knew exactly what to do. He squeezed Chuck's arm, his grin widening into something far less human. "Now let's go eat your sister."
Looking for more scary tales? Subscribe to our podcast and visit ghostumentary.com. Let us know what you think or share with us your scary tales. We might just make a new story from it.